Hi, all. DT Neil talking about all sorts of storytelling things, particularly the season finale of The White Lotus. I've watched that series over the years, and one thing I've definitely noticed about Mike White, who's the, of course, writer, director, creator of The White Lotus, is he is a paragon of the narrative tease, which is to say, he brings situations into play in his stories without offering a payoff. And not for everybody. For some characters, he gets them to a conclusion. But there are a number of characters who he brings characters right up to the precipice of perhaps consequences for their actions, and then pulls it back so that they don't ever suffer the consequences of their actions. And I won't say anything because I'm not going to spoil anything from this latest season. But there are a number of characters for whom they get right up to the abyss, and we get to wander near that ledge or near that abyss over and over again, but they don't ever cross it. And I personally feel this is either particular to Mike White or to the audience that he's writing for with regard to these stories, these privileged folk who are elite and wealthy enough to never really endure the consequences of their actions. There's always something to kind of let them off, and they just move on. And maybe that appeals to the audiences who get titillated by these things, but they don't ever want to see the full consequences of people's actions. And I think that's kind of a liability, personally. Like, it feels to me, when you put characters in a situation and you present conflicts for them, there should be some downstream ramifications of decisions that they made or didn't make. Those are the payoffs. And either he likes his characters too much, or there's not enough pushback from others who are working with him on the stories, but the people are kind of allowed to coast and glide along. And maybe that's the point he's trying to make. I don't know. But I have noticed it. And one of the most satisfying things in a story is when there is a narrative payoff for things that you've set up in the story. And unfortunately, again, throughout White Lotus, there are these incidents, these one-offs, these things that happen, but then you don't get a payoff for them. Now, of course, one could say, well, that's like life. Life is like that. You don't get narrative payoffs in life. Yeah, understand. Yeah, I got that. But when you're doing a scripted story and you're introducing characters aren't people. Ideally, you can make characters realistic and interesting enough that people feel like they're people, but that's the whole point of a narrative. And if you're putting them out there and then setting these things up and then not delivering a payoff of some sort, it's disappointing for people. Unless audience members are no longer in that place of even expecting that anymore, and they're just happy to get to watch some characters do some things. I don't know. But this season there were a lot of those. And it's a little frustrating, I guess, from my perspective, because anything that you're seeing in a story, there's at least the perception that it's significant and that you need to pay attention to this. And then it's like, oh no, nah, just a MacGuffin, a big pile of MacGuffins, not significant. And there are a number of those in this. And again, I can't speak to them without throwing spoilers out and having people freak out, so I won't do it. But at the same time, when you're watching it, and even if you see across the seasons, you'll see that tendency to do that. He'll bring them right to the precipice, but then he walks them back. And either it's character love, or he doesn't want to upset any delicate sensibilities by having characters carry the consequences of their actions to their fullest extent. And I feel a little bad because a lot of these characters, a lot of the actors are kind of setting up these scenes, and then they don't get the satisfaction of really getting to chew the scenery on something because it just sort of resolves. They just nah, there it was. Um, so that's something that'll be interesting to see if how that carries. I feel like it'll carry into the next season, of course, because this has been an ongoing habit and practice for Mike White. So probably be more of that down the road.